I recently had the opportunity to read a very fetching autobiography. Up from Slavery. The groundbreaking monumental autobiography by Booker T. Washington. Take a look at that. Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. Let me read the back of this for y'all, in case you never heard of him. To say that Mr. Washington has won the gratitude of all thoughtful Southern white men is to say that he has worked with the highest practical wisdom at a large constructive task, for no plan for the upbuilding of the freedom could succeed that ran counter to the Southern opinion. To win the support of Southern opinion, to shape it was necessarily part of the task, and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. This is like a dude who was once a slave, who rose to educate himself and be president, founder, and builder of the Tuskegee Institute that helped thousands of Black Americans gain education and skills, post slavery. And the Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, I believe, is still in operation today. Booker T. Washington. Take a look at that mug. He looks like that dude from those Allstate commercials. Are you in good hands? That's Allstate, Stan. Are you in good hands? Booker T. Washington. Booker T. I think there was a wrestler that used to call himself Booker T as well, wasn't there? WWE, Booker T. He didn't go like that. Booker T. He used to do that, and then he'd do like a suplex or something. I don't know. But anyway, Booker T. Washington, folks. Unbelievable. Monumental autobiography. Highly recommend it. It's about personal accountability. It's about the uprising of a class, self-sustainability, the power of trade, the power of skill, the power of education, the power of the heart, the power of the human spirit. As I kind of alluded to, he was a unifying factor between the Southern whites and the Southern blacks. He had a very progressive outlook and attitude, considering he was once a slave. This man was born in bondage and rose to prominence where he's shaking hands with heads of business, heads of industry, personal friend of governors, the President of the United States, globally known, traveled throughout Europe, gave speeches, an educator, and he literally built Tuskegee Institute from the ground up. He used some of those them slave hymns and them slave skills. Certainly come in handy, boss. Little poetic license here. But, he busted his ass and he built an institution and was a spearhead in Black progress. And a lot of times often forgot. Everybody wants to nitpick, Oh, who did this? Who did that? It's like, well, you got to remember Booker T, folks. So a couple inspiring blurbs from the book, just the wisdom of the man. I mean, first of all, what was so prominent about him was his speeches. He'd go around and he'd make speeches. He'd give talks on, his upbringing and his education and the unifying factors of Black and white. And, that's a gift. Speech. That's how we communicate with people, right? And something that I find very interesting and that I often talk about on the podcast is, in this world of the societal dream, keeping up with the Joneses, getting yours above everything else. There's so much hot air, hot wind. And one thing I can't stand is like dumb noise, blabbermouths, while that might run contrary to the podcast. One thing I can't stand is a blabbermouth and blah, 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 and blabbity blue, right? Booker T talks about that briefly, which really impressed me. And I quote, "Simply to be able to speak in public for the sake of talking has never had the least attraction to me. In fact, I consider that there is nothing so empty and unsatisfactory as mere abstract public speaking. But from my early childhood, I have had a desire to do something to make the world better, and then to be able to speak to the world about that thing." So insightful. Because, in a sense, I really relate to that because that's what I do. As a stand-up comic, as a performer, I'm trying to be funny, entertaining, insightful, and to the point. And sometimes I take the poetic license, and sometimes the performing aspect can careen and wind and meander. But generally speaking, I do the podcast. And then when I'm out there in my normal life, I like to listen. I don't like talking much. And if you look at the world, there's a lot of people always talking at me. And I can't hear the word they're saying. Just the shadows of my mind. People always be talking at me. I can't hear a word they're saying. And these fucking Dr. Seuss, Mother Goose, Cat in the Hat, fake ass fucking dummy, dilettante, dipshit morons. Always people, politicians, pundits, preachers, entertainers, public nuisances, drunks, addicts, always just running their beaks, running their yaps. Very insightful. This man, toured the United States and Europe, giving major speeches that united the races and brought black people forward as a race. And, it's like a very interesting skill to have learned as a slave born in bondage. To be able to just rise from the sweat of his own brow and, the helping hands that he generously acknowledges in the book. But like a self-made man who found a power of speech that ignited something in people. Not talk for the sake of talk. And other insights like, for example, finances. One thing that was revealing, which was, true in his time, he was born in 1858, roughly. He doesn't know. He states in the opening of the book, he was born in possibly 1857, 1858. There's really no birth record. He just kind of heard from a few people at the post office. They remembered or something about he went to the post office and some clerk was like, "Oh yeah, we remember. Something like your mother said 1857, 1858. I don't know, he was buying a book of stamps and somebody told him, I don't know, something about a post office. But basically he was born in either like 1857, 1858. He didn't even know, right? And something that was true in his time, which is true today, is like the saving of face, the keeping up with the Joneses, the materialistic stupidity of society. So here's a little quote that I found interesting. The setup of this is, he's now in Alabama, Tuskegee, Alabama. He's going door to door, getting to know the neighbors, getting to know the area. He's about to begin his work setting up the Tuskegee Institute. So here he is, and I quote, he's visiting a family. "In these cabin homes, I often found sewing machines which had been bought or were being bought on installment, frequently at a cost of as much as $60, or showy clocks for which the occupants of the cabins had paid $12 or $14. I remember on one occasion when I went into one of these cabins for dinner, when I sat down to the table for a meal with the 4 members of the family, I noticed that while there were 5 of us at the table, there was but 1 fork for the 5 of us. Naturally, there was an awkward pause on my part. In the opposite corner of the same cabin was an organ for which the people told me they were paying $60 in monthly installments. 1 fork and a $60 organ! Exclamation point. This poor black family just coming out of slavery, misguided in their spending. They got 1 fork for the whole family to share, yet in the corner of the cabin, there's a $60 organ. And I find that so true to this day. People always having to get the next iPhone, the iPhone 11, the iPhone 13, 14, 15, 16, the newest sneakers, the newest computer, the newest video game, this, that, and the other. Trying to buy things where it's like the true gifts of life you can't really buy. The best things in life are for free. And you put yourself at a deficit when you're always chasing these fleeting, materialistic items. I mean, I'm a lowly janitor. And actually, I was. I've been like a tradesperson, a trade laborer, construction laborer, Joe Blow, jack of all trades, master of none, dishwasher, janitor, all sorts of dirty work that I've done. And, much like Booker T here, he was a janitor. He got his humble beginnings as a janitor. But, I've been a janitor and a fucking dishwasher. And I've always just made my money, put my time in, and saved my money. And sometimes I'd be talking to friends and acquaintances, and they make it seem like money is such a big deal, and how do you get it, and diddly dumb. And a lot of friends I've had a lot of friends of mine or acquaintances have had better paying jobs, more prestigious jobs, yet they were always broke. Me, a dishwasher, a janitor, a day laborer, blue collar working person. I just would make my money and save it. I'm like, there's really no trick to money. You just make money, spend it. You make money, save it, and spend it wisely. But there's so many people out there, they got 1 fork, but a $60 organ, metaphorically. Very interesting. Another takeaway from this book is the humility that the story of rags to riches, like when slaves first got their freedom and they're coming off the plantations, and he's trying to establish these institutes, the Tuskegee Institute. He meets this old woman, and she's trying to do her best to supply some support in her own way for the Tuskegee Institute. And I quote, "I recall one old colored woman who was about 70 years of age, who came to me when we were raising money to pay for the farm. She hobbled into the room where I was leaning on a cane. She was clad in rags, but they were clean. She said, 'Mr. Washington, good God knows I spent these best days of my life in slavery. God knows I's ignorant as poor, but,' she added, 'I knows what you and Miss Davison is trying to do. I knows you is trying to make better men and better women for the colored race. I ain't got no money, but I wants you to take these 6 eggs. I want you to take these 6 eggs right here, what I's been saving up, as I wants you to put these 6 eggs into the education of these boys and gals.' Since the work at Tuskegee started, it has been my privilege to receive many gifts for the benefit of the institution, but never any, I think, that touched me so deeply as this one. Isn't that a beautiful story? Some kindly old grandmother. Nah, I ain't got no money, but I want to give you these here 6 eggs that I've been saving. Like, it's so sweet, and it reminds me of the innocence of people. You know what I mean? Like, we're just people. You know what I mean? Somebody humble enough to give 6 eggs, and black or white, like, don't we just look at people and just see a humanity? I don't know, something very touching about that. Indeed. As Booker Washington wrote, you know? And then a couple things here couple quotes I'll give to you here before I close out. Meaningful ones. Just his overall outlook on work and what it takes to make it in life. And this is some of his outlook here. It means a great deal, I think, to start off on a foundation which one has made for one's self. When our old students return to Tuskegee now, as they do often, and go into our large, beautiful, well-ventilated and well-lighted dining room, and see tempting, well-cooked food, largely grown by the students themselves, and see tables, neat tablecloths, napkins, and vases of flowers upon the tables, and hear singing birds, and note that each meal is served exactly upon the minute, and no disorder, with almost no complaint coming from the hundreds of people now filling our dining room, they too often say to me that they are glad that we started as we did and built ourselves up year by year by a slow, natural growth. The process of slow, natural growth. You know? Invaluable. Truly. That idea of just start where you are, start where you can, and just build yourself. You know? Another very interesting, outlook of his. In all my acquaintance, or in this quote, he's referring to General Armstrong. General Armstrong was a general. I guess he was a Yankee. He fought on the North against the Southern whites during the Civil War, and he was like the headmaster at the Hampton Institute. That's where Booker T. Washington went as a young man, where he was first formally educated, and he maintained a very close relationship with General Armstrong throughout his lifetime. So in this snippet, he's talking about General Armstrong. In all my acquaintance with General Armstrong, I had never heard him speak in public or in private a single bitter word against the white men in the South. From his example in this respect, I learned the lesson that great men cultivate love and that only little men cherish a spirit of hatred. I learned that assistance given to the weak makes one who gives it strong, and the oppression of the unfortunate makes one weak. It is now long ago that I learned this lesson from General Armstrong, and resolved that I would not permit no man, no matter what his color might be, to narrow and degrade my soul by making me hate him. With God's help, I believe that I have completely rid myself of any ill feeling toward the Southern white man for any wrong they may have inflicted upon my race. I am made to feel just as happy now when I am reading service to Southern white men as when the service is rendered to a member of my own race. I pity from the bottom of my heart any individual who is so unfortunate as to get into the habit of holding race prejudice. That's coming from the mouth of an ex-slave. I pity from the bottom of my heart any individual who is so unfortunate as to get into the habit of holding race prejudice. Powerful. This is like a template to race relations in the United States of America. This can solve racial relations worldwide. I mean, he's already a historical figure, Booker T. Washington. Sometimes we forget these things as time go by. We get caught up with keeping up with the Kardashians and, what's the latest dumb, stupid thing on the internet, like JRtheP, JRtheP podcast. And the wisdom is right for us to see. Pretty powerful stuff. So, couple more. There's a couple funny ones here too. Check this one out here. No. Here's a good one too in regards to work and stuff like that. Very interesting quote. Where is it? Oh yeah. In the long run, the world is going to have the best, and any difference in race, religion, or previous history will not long keep the world, from what it wants. I think that the whole future of my race hinges on the question of whether or not it can make itself of such indispensable value that people in the town and state where we reside will feel that our presence is necessary to the happiness and well-being of the community. No man who continues to add something to the material, intellectual, and moral well-being of the place in which he lives is long left without proper reward. This is a great human law which cannot be permanently nullified. A great human law. No man who continues to add something to the material, intellectual, and moral well-being of the place in which he lives is long left without proper reward. Yeah. Add something to society. Add something. Black, white, Asian, whatever you is, add something. Got a lot of people squawking about, affirmative action, social reform, Black Lives Matter, trans rights, gay rights, feminist issues. Look within, add value, and your place is yours to have. That's a human law. And we respond to that. Like most people with empathy and a level head can see injustice, most people can see justice. Like, oh, that is deserving of reward. They're not just going to merely withhold anything from you. You got to put forth that effort. Very interesting. And there are some funny things in here too, though. Not intentionally, but in this one little one here, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll just give you a quote. Some reporter sees this is like a news article that he quotes, and it's on the subject of public speaking. And this is a letter that this is like an article that some reporter writes, and they say, while President Cleveland was waiting at Grey Gables today to send the electric spark that started the machinery of the Atlanta Exposition, a Negro Moses stood before a great audience of white people and delivered an oration that marks a new epoch in the history of the South. A body of Negro troops marched in procession with the citizen soldiery of Georgia and Louisiana. A Negro Moses stood and orated. That's hilarious. He was referred to as the Negro Moses of his time. That wasn't like a headline or anything, but that was just something that I found funny. A Negro Moses. I mean, I don't know. Would I ever want to be referred to as a Negro Moses? Is that like flattery? I guess. A Negro Moses. And, you know, like his message, his work was widespread. And something very interesting in conjunction with today is, you know, he got a letter from the Johns Hopkins University. And, you know, he gets this letter of invitation. Dear Mr. Washington, would it be agreeable for you to be one of the judges of a ward in the Department of Education at Atlanta? If so, I shall be glad to place your name upon the list. A line of telegraph will be welcomed. Yours very truly, D.C. Gillum. Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore. So yeah, he's getting letters of request from Johns Hopkins University. And in this modern day, which is very interesting, you know, like COVID-19, all this stupid drummed up theory, information coming out of Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. So like very much the present day connected with Booker T. Washington. You know, he got an honorary degree from Harvard. You know, Harvard University gave him an honorary degree in his day as well. So there's a lot of prominent institutes that have association with Booker T. Washington. Harvard, Johns Hopkins University, Tuskegee Institute. And I can't recommend this book enough. Straight from the mouth of an ex-slave. Booker T. Washington, an autobiography. I'll post the link in the description. You can get it on Amazon. Something like, it was around like $15 or something. It was under $20, you know? Booker T. Washington, Up from Slavery. Yeah. Very, very powerful. You know, certainly changed my outlook and inspired some work ethic in me. And also, what a great bridging of the gap in race relations. So, highly recommended.